So good morning to all of you. Myself, M. Soundararajan, Assistant Professor from Department of Agricultural Engineering at Sri Shanmugha College of Engineering and Technology. So in today presentation is entitled as Environment Legislation and Policy, Part 1. And this presentation covers India's key environmental laws and constitutional provisions, national policies, and international agreements that together form the framework for environmental governance in India. So we can move to next slide. That is the matter we're going to see in this presentation. Okay, we can move to next slide. So in this slide, you can see that how Indian Constitution protects the environments through the different laws. So this slide explains how Indian Constitution provides the legal basis for environmental protection. So first one is the Article 48, which was added through the 42nd Constitutional Amendment in 1976. Is a directive principle of state policy. So it directs the government. I'm going to mark that. So this Article 48A directs the government to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard forest and wildlife. So this means the state has a constitutional obligation to take active step towards the environmental conservation. The second law is that Article 51A G. It is the fundamental duty we are calling it as. So the Article 51A G deals with fundamental duties of citizens. It states that it is the duty of every Indian citizen to protect and improve the natural environment, which includes forests, lakes, rivers, and wildlife. So citizens are also expected to show compassion towards all living creatures. So this provision makes environmental responsibility not just a government obligation but a personal civic duty. So the next one is the Article 21. So it considers right to life. This Article 21 guarantees the right to life, although it does not explicitly mention the environment. The Supreme Court of India, through a series of landmark judgments known as the MC Mehta cases, so interpreted this right to include the right to live in a clean and healthy environment. So this interpretation opened the door for citizens to file public interest legislation on environmental issues. So the fourth one is seventh schedule entry 7A and 7B tells us that which deals with forests, and entry 17 the seventh schedule of constitution includes entry 17A, 17A which deals with forests, and entry 17B which deals with protection of wildlife, animal and birds. So both are placed under the concurrent list, meaning that both the central government and state government can make laws on these subjects. So this ensures that environmental legislation can be enacted at both national and regional level. Okay. So the next one is that national environmental policies. These are the policies taken before. So this slide traces the evaluation of India's national environmental policies across 5 decades. So in 1972, following the historic Stockholm Conference, the first major international meet on the environment, India formulated its national environmental policy. This also led to establishment of Ministry of Environment and Forest. So, and for the first time, environmental concerns were integrated into national development planning. Okay, so through the this 1972, the national environment policies is the response to Stockholm Conference. So by that response, we established the Ministry of Environment and Forest. So it integrated with environment and development planning. Then 1986, an environment policy framework was introduced, aligned with the Environment Protection Act of the same year. This framework set clear standards for pollution control and introduced the concept of environmental clearances. So making it mandatory for industries and projects to get environmental approval before the operation of that industry. So this environmental policy framework gives that standards for pollution control and environmental clearance. So every industry should get the environmental clearance that is introduced in 1986, aligned by the Environment Policy Framework that aligned with the Environmental Protection Act 1986. The next one is the National Environmental Policy, that is shortly called as NEP. So the National Environmental Policy, the year 2006 have the release of the National Environmental Policy, which was the most comprehensive environmental policy India had produced until then. So it addressed not only conservation but also the livelihood of communities depend on the natural resources, environmental governance, and India's commitments under various international agreements. Then the next one is that National Action Plan on Climate Change. So in 2008, the National Action Plan on Climate Change was launched by the Government of India with 8 national missions. These missions covered solar energy, enhanced energy efficiency, sustainable habitat, water, Himalayan ecosystem, green India, sustainable agriculture, and climate strategic knowledge. So each mission had the specific targets and timeline to address the challenges posed by the climate change. The next one is the National Green India Mission, that is introduced in 2014, National Green India Mission. So through that, the goal to increase the forest and tree cover on 5 million hectares of land and improve ecosystem services on another 5 million hectares of both forest and non-forest land. So that contributing to carbon sequestration and biodiversity conservation. That is uh, achieved through this mission, that is the National Green India Mission. Okay, we can move to next slide. So there are the various environmental agreements has been made in our history, that is shown in this slide. You can see. So this slide highlights the major international environmental treaties that India has signed and ratified, reflecting its participation in global environmental governance. The first one is the Stockholm Convention of 1972, was one of the first global agreements targeting chemical pollutions. I'm going to mark that. So the Stockholm Convention, that is happened in 1972, that focuses on persistent persistent organic pollutants, such shortly called as POPs, harmful chemicals that remain in the environment for long periods and accumulate in the living organisms. These are the first matter that have discussed in Stockholm Conventions. in 1972. The next one is the CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. That is the uh, meaning of CITES. So CITES was established in 1973. So it regulates and monitors international trade in plants and animals that are at risk of becoming endangered. So ensuring that trade does not threaten their survival. Okay, that is the main motive of the CITES 1973. The next one is the Vienna Convention and Montreal Protocol. So this Vienna and Montreal Protocol signed in 1987 were milestone agreements aimed at protecting the ozone layer. The Montreal Protocol specifically called for the pass out of ozone depleting substances like chlorofluorocarbons, and it is widely considered one of the most successful environmental agreement in history. That is the Vienna Convention and Montreal Protocol. The next one is the Basel Convention, that is happened in 1989. So the Basel Convention of 1989 addressed the growing problem of hazardous waste being transported from developed countries to developing ones. So it controls the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and aims to reduce the generation through the environmentally sound management. So that is the main thing. That is the Basel Convention mainly talks about transboundary movement of hazardous waste. The next one is the United UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol. So these things, first of all, we have to discuss the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That is the UNFCCC full form. So UNFCCC was signed in 1992 and its Kyoto Protocol in 1997 set binding targets for developed nations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, marking a major step in international climate governance. Okay. The next one is the Convention on Biological Diversity, that is the CBD shortly we are calling. So CBD, the Convention on Biological Diversity, also signed in 1992. Uh, the focus is on the conservation of biological diversity, the sustainability use of its components, and the fair and the equitable sharing of benefits arising from the use of genetic resources. Then the final one is the most recently happened one, that is the Paris Agreement in 2015. The Paris Agreement brought all nations together under a common framework to combat climate change. Its central goal is to limit the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, with efforts to limit it further to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that is the main goals of the Paris Agreement. Okay, we can move to next slide. So that is in this slide we're going to discuss about the Water Act. It's about the prevention and control of pollution as done on 1974. So this slide covers one of the India's earliest and most important pollution control law. The Water Act of 1974 was enacted with the primary objective of preventing and controlling water pollution and maintaining or restoring the wholesomeness of the water bodies across the countries. That is the objective of this Act. So this is the objective of the Water Act. What is the prevent and control of the pollution, as I said before, then restore, maintain, restore of wholesome of the water, then establish the pollution control boards. So this is the main objective of the Water Act. Then its scope of this Water Act is the act has a broad scope and applies to wide range of water bodies, including streams, wells, inland waters, subterranean water, tidal water, seas, and coastal waters. So it was later amended in 1980 to 88 to further strengthen its provisions and adapt to changing environmental challenges. So these are the main scopes of this act. So next that in terms of regulatory structure, the Act established the Central Pollution Control Board, that is CPCB, which is responsible for setting national standards for water quality and effluent discharge at the state level. So the state pollution control boards are empowered to set state-specific effluent standards and issue consent to operate certificates to industries. Without these consent, industries are not legally allowed to discharge any waste into water bodies. So among its key legal provision, Section 17 defines the functions of CPCB. Section 24 prohibits the use of streams or wells for disposing of polluting matter. The Section 25 requires prior consent before any industrial discharge, and Section 43 prescribes penalties for violation of the Act. So these sections are very important. You have to know these sections. So industry have to follow these rules. So the 1988 amendment significantly strengthened the enforcement capability of Act. It introduced a formal schedule of standards and led to the widespread establishment of common effluent treatment plants, which allows groups of small industries to effectively treat their wastewater in cost-effective and environmental sound manner. Okay, we can move to next slide. So this slide mainly talks about Air Act. So it also like Water Act. It mainly focuses on prevention and control of pollution. So this act is enacted in 1981. The main purpose of this act is to the to control air pollution arising from industrial activities and vehicular emissions, and to preserve the quality of for the health and well-being of the public. So this is the main objective of the Air Act. So control air pollution from industrial vehicular source and preserve quality of air for the public health. The next one is the we have to see some key definitions, that is the air pollutant and ambient air and chimney. So the Act provides the important definitions to guide its implementation. An air pollutant is the defined as any substance present in air atmosphere that is harmful to humans or the environment. That is called the air pollutant. The next one is the ambient air. The ambient air refers to the outdoor air in the surrounding environment. The next one is a chimney is defined as any opening or structure used for releasing emissions from the industrial process. The next one is the designated authorities who making this possible are Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board. So these designated authorities under this act are the Central Pollution Control Board and the national level and the State Pollution Control Boards at the state level. So these bodies are empowered to declare certain regions as air pollution control areas where stricter regulations apply. The next one is the Legal provisions. The important provisions are section 19, 21, 22, and 37 talks the air pollution control and mitigating methods involved. So the Act contains several important legal provisions. So section first one is the section 19, empower state government to declare air pollution control areas. Section 21 requires industries to obtain period to consent before establishing or operating any plant in such areas. Then Section 22 prohibits industrial from emitting pollutants beyond the prescribed limits. So Section 37 provides for penalties for violations including imprisonment of up to the 3 months. That is the important provisions to be followed by the industries. Then amendment is came on 1987 in this act that talks about the amendment 1987 amendment expanded the reach of the act significantly. It extended its coverage to the union territories, recognized motor vehicles as a major source of air pollution in this amendment, and brought them under the act purview and empower the CPCB to directly intervene in the cases where State Pollution Control Board fails to act. Okay, so that is the thing that amendment introduces in this. The National Ambient High Quality Standards. Such a important values you have to think points you have to note that. So these acts also prescribe the national ambient air quality standards for a key pollutant including PM. PM means particle matter. So PM 2.5, PM 10 size in the size that is present in the hair will cause the serious harmful effects to the human body and human health. So sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, carbon monoxide, and ozone. So these standards were revised in 2019 to align with the World Health Organization's guidelines and now serve as the scientific and legal foundation for India's National Clean Air Program. So which aims to reduce air pollution level across major cities in India. Okay. Okay, we came to end of this session. So this is the concluding slide of presentation. So marking the end of part 1 of the series on environmental legislation policy. The presentation has laid a strong foundation by covering the constitutional basis, national policies evaluations, international commitments, and co-pollution control legislation in India. So I hope that you understood this concept in today's session. Thank you.